Hello again, and welcome back to our journey through the Middle Ages. Tonight, let us step away from the quiet village fields and enter a world of stone, vigilance, and authority, the medieval castle. Imagine not just a fortress, but a living, breathing community, bustling with activity, all without the conveniences we know today. Our story begins just before dawn. High on a windswept hill, the castle stands silent and imposing, its massive stone walls a testament to human labor and a beacon of power. Inside, the first stirrings of the day are not from an alarm, but from the changing of the guard, sentries who have spent the night peering into the darkness, scanning the horizon for any sign of trouble, will soon be relieved. Their vigilance is constant. There are no cameras or motion sensors, only sharp eyes and ears. Their communication is simple: shouts, horn calls, or the clatter of a released portcullis, a sound that echoes through the quiet stone passageways, signaling the new day. As the sun begins its slow ascent, casting long shadows across the inner courtyard, the castle truly awakens. The great hall, the heart of the castle, will soon be filled with the sounds of preparation. Here, the lord and lady, their family, knights, squires, servants, and even visiting guests would eat, conduct business, and socialize. There are no kitchens with gas stoves and refrigerators. Instead, meals are cooked in massive fireplaces, often in a separate kitchen building to minimize fire risk. Imagine the smells: wood smoke, roasting meats, bubbling stews, and baking bread filling the air. Water, for cooking and drinking, is drawn from a well within the castle walls, a crucial feature in times of siege. Food storage relies on salting, smoking, drying, and root cellars, natural forms of preservation that require constant attention to prevent spoilage. Barrels of salted fish, smoked hams hanging from rafters, and bins of dried grains would fill the storerooms, carefully managed by the castle steward. Life within the castle was highly structured, stark contrast to the relative freedom of peasant life. Every person had a role, from the lowest stable boy tending to the horses to the most esteemed knight advising the lord. The stables would be a hive of activity, with grooms caring for the horses, preparing them for rides, or for carrying messages. Blacksmiths would already be at their forges, the clang of hammer on anvil a constant sound, shaping iron for tools, weapons, or horseshoeing. There were no telephones or radios. Messages were carried by hand, by rider, or sometimes by homing pigeon. Communication relied on trust, memory, and physical endurance. A crucial message from the king might take weeks to reach a distant castle, making quick decisions and coordinated actions a monumental challenge. News of wars, alliances, or distant events would arrive slowly, often filtered through multiple tellings before reaching the ears of the castle inhabitants. Hygiene and daily routines inside the castle were, like in the villages, dictated by practicalities, though perhaps with slightly more amenities for the lord and lady. There were no modern plumbing systems. Waste was collected in garderobes, stone chutes that emptied into a moat or cesspit below, requiring frequent cleaning by dedicated servants. Bathtubs, often large wooden tubs, were brought into rooms and filled manually with heated water carried by servants. Bathing was still an infrequent luxury, more common among the nobility than the peasantry, but still far from daily. Scented herbs and perfumes were used to mask odors. Clothing made from wool, linen, or for the very wealthy, silk and fur, was elaborate but heavy, requiring airing, brushing, and mending to keep clean. Laundering was a laborious process, often involving harsh lye soaps and beating clothes on stones by a stream. Defense was the primary purpose of a castle, and its design was a marvel of pre modern engineering. The thick stone walls, deep moats, towering gatehouses with multiple layers of defense, portcullises that could drop swiftly drawbridges that could be raised murder holes through which stones or boiling liquids could be dropped, and strategically placed towers were all designed to withstand attack. There were no automatic weapons or high explosives. Battles were brutal and intimate, fought with swords, spears, bows, and rudimentary siege engines like trebuchets and battering rams. The castle garrison, knights, archers, and foot soldiers, trained constantly in the bailey or courtyard, honing their skills with physical drills, mock combat, and target practice. Their armor, made of chainmail or plate, was heavy and cumbersome, but offered vital protection, though it was still vulnerable to a well placed blow. Watchmen stood atop the battlements day and night, their eyes constantly scanning the surrounding lands. Education within a castle varied greatly. While most servants and soldiers learned practical skills through apprenticeship and observation, the children of the nobility received a more formal education. Boys were often sent to serve as pages and then squires in other noble households, learning knightly skills like swordsmanship, horsemanship, and jousting, alongside courtly manners, heraldry, and sometimes reading and writing in Latin or their vernacular language. Girls were taught household management, needlework, spinning, weaving, medicine, often herbal remedies, and perhaps basic literacy, music, and dance. Books were rare and precious, illuminated manuscripts painstakingly copied by hand and often kept in monastic libraries rather than every castle. Knowledge was power, and literacy was a privilege, especially for those involved in administration or religious life. Entertainment in a castle was more refined than in a village, but still far removed from our digital age. Feasts were grand affairs, often held in the great hall, with minstrels providing music on lutes, flutes, and drums, jesters offering comedic relief, and bards reciting epic poems and stories of ancient heroes or recent battles. Hunting, hawking, training falcons to hunt prey, and jousting tournaments were popular pastimes for the nobility, demonstrating skill and prowess. Chess and other board games provided intellectual challenges, while dice games were a common form of gambling. Without constant external stimulation, people relied on their own creativity, conversation, and performance for amusement. Storytelling was paramount, passing down history, morality, and entertainment from generation to generation. The castle's economy was often largely self sufficient, relying on the surrounding farmlands, forests, and local crafts produced within its walls or in the nearby village. Blacksmiths, carpenters, weavers, masons, and other artisans often lived within the castle walls or in the immediate vicinity under the Lord's protection, providing essential goods and services. Money, in the form of coins, facilitated trade in market towns, but much of the daily life within the castle revolved around bartering goods and services or feudal obligations. The Lord's wealth was ultimately measured in land, loyalty of his vassals, and the number of fighting men he could command, rather than solely by coinage. The peasants working the land paid tribute to the Lord in goods, labor, or sometimes coin, supporting the castle's inhabitants. Life in a medieval castle was a blend of privilege and duty, comfort and hardship. It was a world of strict hierarchy, constant vigilance, and deep reliance on manual labor and inherited knowledge. Ultimately, living in a medieval castle, whether as lord or servant, meant a life of constant awareness of the external world, yet one deeply isolated from distant events and information. Decisions were made based on limited, slow arriving intelligence. Life was cyclical, tied to the seasons and the demands of defense. The castle was a symbol of security, power, and order in an often turbulent world, built not with the click of a button, but with raw human effort, ingenuity, and an unwavering commitment to survival against a backdrop of feudal obligations and a pervasive sense of divine will. So, as you rest, imagine the stone walls guarding their secrets, the echoes of lives lived long ago, and the silent strength of a world without our modern tools, yet full of its own complex beauty and enduring spirit. Good night.